Colleagues, I want to give you a brief overview of HELTASA's restructuring and where the Foundation's Special Interest Group, or SIG, fits in. I'll also talk about some of the projects in the SIG and who is involved at the various institutions. This vision entails fostering more inclusivity, representation, collaboration, and active engagement and participation across all the CLCs within HELTASA. Now, colleagues, if you are an active member of the CLC, you have already contributed to this vision in many ways. And on behalf of the executive team, I want to express my sincere appreciation to you. Let me give you a brief overview of HELTASA's repurposing and restructuring process so that you can see how the Foundation CLC fits in. At the 2020 AGM, held online at the HELTASA conference hosted by CUT, Kasturi introduced a new phase of shape-shifting for the current academic year. Colleagues, you might wonder why restructuring or shape-shifting was necessary. Well, from 2016 until 2020, HELTASA was able to build onto the sterling work done by its early executive teams and members. Together with your input, the organization could meet these strategic objectives. As you can see there, I've put on the slide objectives 1 to 4. So it was only because of your input and your cooperation throughout the years that HELTASA was able to meet these objectives. I'm sure you'll agree with me that the super complexity of our work context that Barnett referred to more than 2 decades ago has increased significantly. So if I ask you now to name some of the changes and challenges in your context influencing your daily work, then we'll have a plethora of responses. For these reasons, colleagues, and to continue enacting its role as a professional development organization that is dedicated to strengthening practices in higher education, research, and policy, HELTASA has committed to remaining relevant, responsive, and resilient. For example, to respond appropriately to our members' rich cultural and linguistic diversity, you'll agree that our undertaking to start doing things differently is relevant and timely. And colleagues, if we have critics of HELTASA would probably say, yes, it's relevant and timely, but it's also long overdue. So those of you who attended the 2020 AGM will remember that the AGM report celebrated HELTASA's many accomplishments. If we look at these accomplishments, then we note that they include its first online conference, which was held last year, a Puisano with the academic director SIG under the leadership of Eunice Champion at Nelson Mandela University, webinars hosted by various CLCs, and short, sharp think pieces submitted by its members and role players within the sector. Now, colleagues, if you look at the slide, you'll note that I purposefully included the names of colleagues who were steering these initiatives and the institutions so that you can connect with them in future projects. Colleagues, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that everyone involved achieved these accomplishments through huge sacrifices. For example, here I refer to the stringent lockdown conditions that earmarked the COVID-19 pandemic. You also reminded us in many of the presentations we had thus far, and as we also experienced firsthand, that the pandemic highlighted deeply entrenched disparities amongst our students, lecturers, and institutions. Colleagues, if you think back to the variety of initiatives or look at them on the HELTASA website, you'll agree that they indicate that HELTASA was indeed relevant, responsive, and resilient in supporting academics in their teaching role. However, as we say, there is always room for improvement. And one of the many insights that the HELTASA executive members had was that the organization needed to expand its capacity and capability to continue enjoying legitimate standing in higher education. So colleagues, now the question is, what does a restructured HELTASA look like? As you see on the organogram, HELTASA now has a three-tiered leadership consisting of a board, a higher education representative council, a coordinating council, and strategic partners. We also have three strategic teams, namely recruitment and membership, media and communication, and conferences and events. Our scholarly projects are the PhD program, professional learning, student learning, and program development. Scholarly projects 5, 6, and 7 focus on the National Teaching Awards and include the academic directors and the Decolonization National Interests Group. So if you look at this organogram, colleagues, please start thinking about where you would like to slot in as a member of the CLC. HELTASA engage in an extensive recruitment process to get academics on board who are experts or lifelong learners in these areas. And those are the areas that I've just mentioned. It was also essential that they showed commitment to take hands with the executive team. So it's about expertise, it's about the ability to learn where necessary, wherever. It's about building capacity, but it's also about being willing to show up and take hands when needed. So our CLCs are part of these project teams. You'll recognize familiar names if you look at the slide. Remember that these colleagues who give leadership in the various projects are looking forward to working closely with you in building the CLCs. So CLCs in the student learning scholarly project are first year experience, and the tutoring, mentoring, and supplemental instruction CLCs. And here you see the people who are at the helm of the scholarly project. Colleagues, you'll be happy to know that the Foundation CLC is now part of the Program Development Scholarly Project. The restructured HELTASA represents distributed leadership, which means that you'll see a project manager, a scholarly strategist, a scholarly practitioner, and a scholarly researcher in each scholarly project. My colleagues, Dr. Patricia Mahuro, Charlene Geduld, Lauren Davids, and Marika Kleitz, and I are at the helm of the Program Development Scholarly Project. So our focus is on curriculum development in undergraduate and postgraduate programs. Colleagues, I am also happy to announce that we're very excited to have Lauren Davids from CPUT on board as the new Foundation CLC convener. So this is Lauren's email, and you're most welcome to contact her for any information about the Foundation CLC. Colleagues, we are indebted to Prof. Francois Marais from the University of the Free State, who has convened the Foundation CLC for many years in an excellent manner. For example, one of the many highlights of the CLC was the 2019 National ECP Colloquium, which was hosted successfully with the University of Pretoria on its Mamelodi campus. And I'm sure that was probably one of the last colloquia that was addressed, that was attended in a face-to-face format. So I'm sure most of you have fond memories of that experience. So colleagues, as mentioned earlier, the Foundation CLC also collaborated with other student learning CLCs to host a well-attended webinar last year about understanding students' lived experiences during COVID-19. So this is the link to the opinion piece on the HELTASA website. So I've only highlighted a few of these achievements under the leadership of Prof. Francois Marais, but I'm sure you can think of many others, and even some that you were an integral part of. Colleagues, you might have seen on the HELTASA website that Prof. Ntabiseng Okude from the University of Pretoria briefly took over the convenership when Francois retired. Unfortunately, she had to step down because of other work commitments. As I've mentioned, Lauren Davids from CPUT stepped in as the new Foundation CLC convener. And those of you who know Lauren know that she's energetic and she has lots of ideas to build the Foundation CLC. So Lauren is very enthusiastic to take up this new leadership role. Colleagues, if you think about Lauren's input in the Colloquium Planning Committee thus far, then that is an example of how you as members and potential members can be involved in the Foundation CLC. I want to encourage you to sign up as a member of the CLC so that Lauren can contact you as soon as possible. So, as you know, the policies of the Department of Higher Education and Training on foundation provision underpin work in the Foundation CLC. Now, these policies guide development work within ECP, and I'm sure you've worked with these policies in the past. ECPs are known for innovative curricula and teaching and learning approaches. And we also heard from some presenters that mainstream colleagues are even envious of these practices. These approaches have developed from the need to adapt university practices to help students transition into and successfully complete their studies. When looking at the four main aims of the Foundation CLC, I encourage you to visualize your potential role and input.